Hey kids, welcome back. We're working on the little Starfire again, trying to solve a problem that we discovered earlier on. Not a not a spool in the back of this thing. It's actually welded spider gears. So don't know if we trust that or not. I decided that we don't trust it. So we're gonna go whole hog here and fix it the right way, or at least one of the right ways, and get what some people call a lunchbox locker. Here, I don't know where the heck that came from, but I've got experience with these. I got one in my old Cutlass. Really like it. Pretty simple to put it in, and kind of low impact. You can reuse it. You can use regular gear oil, differential grease in the back of it, and not have to put the limited slip additive in there. So that's kind of a plus. And they're not free by any means, but it's not the most expensive option. And like I said, I'll take it out of this. I'll put it in something else if I need to, or maybe I won't. But it fixes our problem to where we don't have a locker all the time to where it's fused together. And those welded spider gears, man, you just never know. I mean, they break. Like I said, if you watch the other videos in the series on our channel about the Starfire here, or Monza, if you prefer to call it by its generic name, those things break. It's a good way for a derby car to get you a locked rear axle, but it's not the smartest thing on the street. This one was welded up pretty good, so good that I had to get the plasma cutter after it, as you'll see. So let's check it out. All right, here's what we're dealing with. You can see what a mess that was. I had to get the die grinder and cutoff wheel and cut part of this weld down so I could even move it. They had built this all up with these booger welds so much that I couldn't even rotate these spider gears out of their position around here where the shaft that runs through holds them in place. Even when we took that out, which thankfully they didn't get into that, or the axles or the C-clips or anything. So I was able to get the axles, out from where they go in through the side here. Probably barely see my fingertip in there, but yeah, that's another reason to not do this. If it's in your derby car like I did, who cares? That's the last time we're going to see that car. It's probably going to live and die there at the event, but or move on to the next one and die there, but not going to be taking it back apart because you really can't. So step 2 for me is get the plasma cutter set up here, and we're going to try to cut through this, because really that's the only way I'm going to be able to get these out is to split them, and then the side gears will come out. But I may have to cut multiple times to get this out, and it's going to be a big old mess. So I'm trying to save this carrier. So it had 308 on it, but this is actually what they call a 2 series carrier, because the gear ratios that are 256 and 278 or whatever that is, some of the ones that are more like a highway cruising gear kind of thing, that's what this fits on. And to use the higher numerical ones like 323, 373s, 410, stuff like that, it's a totally different one, to where they're a different size. The gears won't directly fit onto this. I mean, so I could probably get another one, but I want to at least try to save this for what we're doing next. So here goes nothing. Ooh-wee! Would you look at that mess? And that wasn't an easy operation. I had to keep chopping and making more room to get the head of the torch down in there. I don't know any other way you could do it without it, honestly. But what a mess. That's about 30 minutes of work there. Flipping it over, cutting, flipping it over, cutting.
finally getting to come out, and she is hot, 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 man. Wear your PPE.
Man, I'm glad that's over. I had to get inside there and clean all the slag that had fallen and collected and to all the surfaces, of course. I mean, there's just no way around it. You know, I had to just go totally crazy and cut that thing up to get it out. I mean, there was no other way. As you saw, it was just locked in there. But we got it out. It's good. I didn't tear it up or anything. While I had it out, I went ahead and got the Dremel tool out and just did a light deburring around all the sharp edges on the case. Kind of does two things if you're not deburred a engine block or anything like that. One is it kind of keeps you from, slicing your fingers up, because these, when they machine these castings, it's kind of almost makes like a knife edge or something on there. So that makes it nice. You don't slice yourself up as easy. And two, it sharp corners are going to be a stress concentration, cause a crack in it. Probably not a huge deal the way these carriers are loaded, but why not? I got it out, might as well do it. So there it is. That's the one we took out of the Firenza right there. And you heard me talking earlier about 2 Series, 3 Series. I wanted to show you, because when I was at the junkyard the other day, I did get a 3 Series carrier. I have an S10 as well as some 5-lug axles from when we go that route later on. We can switch that over. If I decide to change the gear, I got this. If not, I can still put those axles in later on when I go to convert the whole thing to 5-lug when I decide on what kind of wheels I want. But I wanted you to see this because you can visually really see the difference here when we get down kind of at table level here. This 2 Series on the right, 3 Series on the left. This little truck had a 370 to 1 gear ratio versus this had a 308. So this could go up, numerically higher, but this is maxed out 308. You're stuck with 256 in that range and all those gear sets in and around that. Some differential carriers, you have the ability to put a spacer in here. So you could put like a 3 Series gear and a 2 Series carrier. That's kind of, the jury's kind of out on whether or not that's even safe. I have one. Have I used it? No. I was going to, but I decided I'm just going to track down a 3 Series carrier for my Cutlass that I have, and went that route. But I kept all the parts. So people running them, sure, but we don't need to. We got a new 3 Series carrier now. So next steps for us is put our 308 ring gear back on here and get it, torqued down, ready to rock, and we'll go on out and pop that back in and get ready to put that get that Powertrax in there. All right, we got her all back in there, ring gear on, get her torqued down properly. You can probably see I already pushed the left side axle through in anticipation of step 1 for what we're getting ready to do here. Check it out. Powertrax. Ought to be cool. All right, let's get this show on the road. Pretty good product packaging. Everything's kind of sorted out the way you expect. The only gripe I got, I guess, is this one, unlike my last one, it did not include installation instructions, and I kind of vaguely remember how it went together, but I was not going to trust my memory. So I was a little freaked out at first that I wouldn't be able to find it, because I believe they're discontinuing this one. So if you want one for your 7.5-inch GM differential, maybe you should get it now, because I got this from Speedway, and I got nothing but good things to say about those guys. I paid a little extra to try to get the shipping here in a hurry, and it didn't get here on the promised date, and they refunded my money. So kudos to them. There's an unpaid plug for Speedway. If you know, you're buying some at Jegs, whatever. Speedway's, you know, the third option, I would say, and they're pretty darn good. They got most of the same stuff, and they help me out. But what I was going to say is, you know, I did find on the Powertrax website they had some documentation, and I got the manual electronically, so I was able to figure it out. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's coming back to me. It's not. Seems like they haven't revised it, which also makes me think that maybe they're not gonna keep supporting this. It looks just like the one that I got in my 8.5-inch differential, but just you know, of course, size to fit the 7.5 in my Starfire, or you know, Monza, if you want to call it that. But if you read the directions and you get this, they kind of insinuate that these two assemblies here that were in these pockets in the styrofoam, that they're different. That there's one slotted and one not, and you can see here. Just turn around. They're both have the slot. They're exactly the same thing. So I think they figured out, at least for this, you know, it didn't matter. I don't know. The reason that they have that is because when you put it together, one side you put the C-clip in as you're building it, and on the other side, you've kind of painted yourself into a wall, and you can't get access to this C-clip on the right side or the passenger side. So they got this slot, and you kind of fish it in there. It's not as hard as you think. I mean, get you a magnetic, you know, pickup tool. You can it kind of slides right in there. I'll show you. Kind of, you can't really see, but there's a groove in it. It just sort of works out that you can't drop it or anything. It kind of fits right in. But we're gonna get ready for step one, which is put the part that they call, Powertrax calls, the coupler, and it's this right here. This is kind of what goes in place of the side gears. There's no thrust washers or anything. You take all that stuff out, which is a good thing because mine were pretty smoked from setting them on Hellfire with the plasma cutter. But it just pops right in there. And on the left side, we put the C-clip in, left side, driver's side. And on the right side, we don't. We just kind of wait on that one because it goes in last after we do some other stuff. So let's move on to that step. Okay, we got both the couplers in. You can see the left driver's and the right passenger side. As we said, the driver's side, you do put the C-clip in. You can see that kind of poking in on the bottom there. I got it, you know, gravity kind of holding it in place. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, once you build this thing up, you can't get to the right side, the passenger side. So there's no C-clip on that one. So it's just sticking in there. And it's actually out a little farther than we need it to put it together. But that's okay. You know, there's nothing holding it. We can push it back and forth. So the next step is to put the actual pieces that do the work in there. I think they call them paddle rings or something like that. But those go in next, and you got to get them turned a certain way, and we'll go through that and what happens. Okay, before we can put the rest of the parts in here, one of the kind of prep steps, it actually comes before what we have already done, but there's no reason to do it until now, is to put the what they're calling saddle springs. You can see I got two of them in here, in the groove where the cross shaft goes, what would normally hold the spider gears. There's 8 of them because there's 4 in each half, you know, right side, left side. What they're telling you to do is put grease on there, put, you know, bearing grease, you know, something heavy. Basically, you know, stick them up in there, which, you know, that's an old mechanic's trick, you know, to get something to kind of stay in place while you're assembling it. And as I recall, I don't remember having a problem with these in the past, because in the end, you got to kind of jam the cross shaft through. Well, I shouldn't say jam because that sounds scary, but you have to press the cross shaft past these 4 springs, but they really don't have anywhere to go but in. So, you may have to twist it back and forth to where you get on the low side of the spring, and it kind of like ramps itself in on a spiral and pushes past that, and you're done. But I had this little Klein Tools demagnetizer, and I thought, hey, this is all ferrous material. Let's kind of do the belt and suspenders thing, and not only put grease in there, but we'll magnetize it too. Now, that may be a mistake. It's not in the instructions, and I'm going off track here a little bit, but I'm going to give it a shot. If it proves me wrong, well, you heard it first, folks. But pretty much, you just want them to stay in there. So because you're lifting them up and turning it around, and you don't want them to fall out. They're kind of holding in there, I think, with magnetism, basically. The other thing that they're telling you to do, and this is kind of important. This is very important. Their language is kind of screwy, so you need to kind of bust it down. What they're wanting to do, they're talking about paddle wheel and engagement teeth and all this stuff. Here's the important part. If you look at this thing, it looks pretty uniform, right, at first glance, but it's not. See right here? There's a couple teeth missing. What they want to make sure that you do, and this makes perfect sense. See, this has got a little end on it. They're calling it the paddle. They want to make sure when you put this together and put it in that you've got this paddle piece right here in this region where there's no teeth, where it fits in there. Because that's how the thing works, is, when there's resistance, when it needs differential action, this hops out of there and kind of skips around. And then when you get into where both wheels are turning the same speed, it jumps back in and it's, locked. But pretty simple and pretty ingenious piece. But if you try to jam that stuff in there, I don't know. I haven't tried. I imagine somebody, has gotten the BFH out and forced it in there, and then it breaks, and they're like, oh, these things are junk, they don't work. But, it has to be put together, correctly. So, make sure you get that in that groove that they're talking about before you start to put it in there. The other thing is, this table looks filthy, but I assure you, the area that I'm working is very clean. So try to reduce the amount of dirt that you're getting in there. We're not building the carburetor to where a grain of sand is going to wreck it. Differential, you could probably pour, quarter pound of sand in there and it would still run, but why take the risk? So try to keep it clean. Do what you can to get it done. I'm going to finish. Look, I already dumped one of the springs. I'm going to finish putting the springs in here and holding them in with grease, and then we'll put it in and see what the rest of it looks like. Okay, well, here's what that looks like, at least on the left side, driver's side installed. You can see the teeth are fitting together. There's no gap. There's a corresponding groove in that coupler that we talked about that was in the piece that we just installed. So you need to rotate it around to where that's facing towards you to get it in there right. It's a little fiddly, I guess, but you get it snapped down in there and it's good to go. You see, I got pretty generous with the grease on there, but it's gonna kind of mix in with the gear oil, and you'll never know it was there. So that's what you want to see. It needs to fit up right. You shouldn't have to force this stuff. Get it in there. You can still see the axle poking through on the end, and then we'll get the other side, because it's kind of the, it's the same piece, but, it's rotated 180. So those pins in the back there, the pins are going to be in the front. Hey, look at that, I knocked it loose. But, we'll pop it back into place, and we'll get it in there. So it's kind of fragile, as you can see. I just barely bumped it and knocked loose. But it didn't break anything. Nothing's wrong. We'll snap that right back up in there. Maybe you can see that groove that I was talking about. See the teeth missing in there. Just take your time, be patient, and you can get this thing set up. All right, got the other half stuffed in there and rotated it around 90 degrees per the instruction. You might notice up in this top here, there's something sticking in there. Well, that's a crudely cut washer that kind of helps hold this together, because they kind of want to pop out of those gear teeth once you get them lined up. And without having a helper out here or a third hand, I kind of deviated from the instructions and stuck that in there. Obviously, we'll take that out of there after we progress past this next step, which is there's a double spring that goes in this little pocket right here. Let's see if you can zoom in there. Let's see. Doing this one-handed, folks. There's the big diameters for the larger spring, and then the two little slots on the sides. The center of the two springs kind of jumps in there. So I'm going to use a beat-up old screwdriver, and we'll pop that in there, and then won't need that spacer at the top anymore. Pull that out of there and spin it around 180 degrees, and we're just about to the finish line. There's a couple more kind of minor setup checks after you put the cross shaft in and bolt it down, but it's essentially done at this point. Here's your double spring setup. You got your inner and your outer. Obviously, the longer one is the inner spring. Goes inside this bigger outer spring. I'm gonna kind of guide them in there a little bit with this old beat up screwdriver. I wouldn't tear up a good tool. The tip's kind of jacked up, so we'll pop her in there and move forward. Well, hey, I got both sides in there. I fought these for a minute. I was trying to get. I'll show you. There's two pairs of them. One 180 out from the other. What I was trying to do, if you can see, there's two springs in there. Move this light here. You can see a little better. Bear with me. What I was trying to do was the wrong thing. And like I said, it's been several years since I put this together. And my cutlass, I was trying to put the little spring, which is kind of behind this big one, or inside this big one here. Let's see. Barely see it in there. That's what's going in the tinier slots. I was trying to, insert that and then compress the big spring and little spring to jump into the groove. And I fought that for a minute and decided, well, maybe there's a better way. And I pretty much slid the big diameter spring. This one you can see easily here. Slid that in there first, and then just pushed the ends of the little spring in with my my busted up screwdriver, because it doesn't have a very high spring rate. It's pretty easy to move. The big one does not. It's very stiff, and it fits in there no problem. I think the little spring is holding the big spring in place. That seems like the function of it. But once you do that, get them nested together, one inside the other, and just slide that big spring in as far as it'll go. Hold it, and then push one end of the little one in. Push the other side of the little one in, and it snapped right in. I mean, I did it in 2 seconds. I was like, man, I am dumb, because that was so much easier. So they don't really explain, a good way to do it in the manual, which, that's typical. They're just install springs into slot
proceed to next step. But that was a tip I'd like to share. Slide that big one in there, push the little ones in, and makes it a whole lot easier. So on to the next step where we there's a little check gauge, I believe, and then we put the C-clip in on this side, and that's about it, folks. There is a check you need to do. There's a little gauge block. It's just a kind of a rectangular piece of square stock, or a rectangular piece of steel stock. You can see here, it's narrow on one side and wider on the other. Kind of trying to look down the barrel of it there. What you're seeing is, if your carrier's worn out or got some deposits or tweaked or something, there's checking for clearance between these two things. Basically, it should fit, and it does. On the narrow side, you can see I've got it stuck in there. I know my hand's in the way, but it's jabbed in there. If you can see that, kind of move in there. That's the good sign. It should fit in there, and it's pretty tight. And then on the wide side, it should not fit. And yeah, there's no way, because it was kind of not a force fit, but it was kind of a snug fit to get the narrow side of it. Let me see that or not. It is not square. It's rectangular. Narrow side fits. Square side does not. That's what you need to check. And if that works, you're good to go. If not, just call tech support, and at that point, you're on your own. Okay, I did leave something out. What you got to do next is put this right side, passenger side C-clip in there. That's what these slots are for. I mean, obviously, this side, it's already in there. That was kind of early on in the steps. It kind of might seem like you're building the ship in a bottle, but it's really not hard at all. I just used two tools. I took a magnetic pickup to just hang on to it, which you don't even really need to do. I was just trying to get it to where it was the mouth of the C-clip, was kind of facing straight in. I pushed it in as far as it would go, and it stayed there, with the magnet. And then I went back and I took a screwdriver that I had out here earlier and just kind of pushed it in home. And it didn't rotate or anything. It just snapped right into place. You can feel it go way down in there. I know you're not going to be able to see it, but it is definitely engaged. So the next step that we do is to rotate the wheels backwards. I'm taking it easy here because I don't want the teeth to jump out. 1/4 turn, and we're exposing this pocket where we put the springs in that the cross shaft is going to go through, and we're going to check those out, make sure those are good. And I think after you do that, you rotate it 180, and you put the actual cross shaft in, bolt it down, and keep moving closer to the finish line. Okay, next thing is you roll the wheels backwards, 1/4 turn, to kind of open up this the shaft, or the hole where the shaft goes through. You're basically just making sure that your springs didn't fall out, and because the next step is you're gonna push the shaft through here, where my finger is, but hard to see, but they are all in place. All 4 of them are still in place there, so that's a good sign. I got the check block and my cut-up washer in there just to kind of hold it together so it doesn't move around, because it's still loose. Without that shaft in the middle, they can still kind of wiggle back and forth and disengage the teeth from the couplers. So I'm just holding it in spot there. So we'll turn it around and check that, and then we'll start putting that shaft in. Well, there you go. Got the shaft pressed in there. The bolt is not tightened down yet. If you can get your torque wrench in there, it's 20 foot-pounds. I don't know if I can or not. They even describe in the instructions to tighten securely, so they're probably assuming that you can't get it in there. I did have to get the hammer after that to push it in, but it's one of those cases where, you let the tool do the work. Don't just go swinging away like John Henry at that. If you got to do that, something's wrong. Stop and check and make sure one of those springs didn't hop out, or there's something else in the way. But remember, you are compressing those springs with the pin that doesn't really have a point on it. It's just got a little chamfer, and it's kind of have to catch the end of the spring and push it in there. Let the tool do the work, and just kind of tap it in. Just tap it in, and it's kind of stiff all the way through because you're pushing a lot of things out of the way. Don't be tempted to use your stock cross shaft there, because right where the flats are ground for clearance, that's where the springs ride inside of there. So use the one that they supply with the kit. Goes without saying, I guess. It's completely smooth all the way around. It goes in pretty good. The only thing that you gotta watch, don't screw up and get this thing clocked at some weird angle when you pound it in, because then you're never going to be able to get that bolt in through there. So I kept the bolt in all the way to the end to keep it lined up. And it's got a leader on it, so if I was off a tiny bit, the bolt would pop it back in place. But if you understand what I'm saying, don't just wail on it without the bolt in there, because you may have it, at some crazy angle, and then how do you turn it? There's nothing on it to turn externally, so you got to flip this thing around 180 and pop it back out. It just makes it more of a hassle. But really, it's done at this point. We tighten it up, and torque it if you can. 20 foot-pounds if you can do that. I'm gonna guesstimate it if I can't. I got my torque wrench out here, but I can't. The head of it is too big to get in between this and the bearing cap for the carrier, so I may have to think about that. I don't know if I got a 8mm crow's foot. We'll see. But we're going to try to do it the best we can to get it right. But that is essentially done. The cool thing about these is that since there's no friction plates or anything, you don't really need the additives. The positive traction or limited slip additive in there. You can just use regular old gear oil in that, so that'll save you a little bit, or at least keep you from forgetting to put it in when you change your differential grease, oil, whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna take the rear end cover and clean it up, knock the dents out of it, powder coat it, put it on there. Hey, why not? It's off. Look good doing it, kind of thing. And basically that's it. There's a couple checks I'm going to show you next here that basically they're sort of letting you prove to yourself that the thing works. I don't know whether I'm going to do it or not, but I'm going to show you the page from the manual as to what you need to do. You kind of locking one wheel down and seeing if it'll ratchet out of it, just to show that the unit works. But I think we're done. So I'm going to show you that, and we'll wrap this thing up. Okay, there's the manual page that they're basically kind of showing you how to test it. Putting it in gear and working one wheel against the other and seeing what happens. If you get one and you get the manual, it's going to all be in there, but it's kind of self-explanatory. But be happy to pass this along to somebody that doesn't have one, or doesn't understand what's going on. Not really a big deal. I don't remember if I checked it on my Cutlass or not. It definitely worked. I think this is more or less seeing if you broke something. But that's about it.
Well, hey, there's another one in the can. Hope you got something out of that. Got this thing put together, so, got a few more things to do before we get her back on the street. Got to sort out some fuel system stuff. kind of sketchy on that, but runs and drives as you've seen in the other videos. It's a good little car. It's a good start for me, at least, and man, I love it, you know, but I love all cars. So please like, subscribe, share if you dig what we're doing, comment. You know, we're going to keep doing it anyways, but love to have you come along with us. And until next time, we'll see you on Smith Motorworks. Later.